Happy President's Day from the Civil War Project. I thought it would be interesting to highlight 7 presidents who served politically or militarily during the Civil War, and to provide some stats for each so we can see how they measure up. Be sure to stick around until the end for the final results, as well as a bonus about a president's son who was connected to 3 presidential assassinations. So, let's talk history. Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president. Born in Hodgenville, Kentucky, his father was a carpenter and farmer, and he lost his mother when he was just 9 years old. His schooling was informal and amounted to less than a year. As an adult, he self-studied the law. Prior to the White House, he lived in Hodgenville, Kentucky, Spencer County, Indiana, and the towns of Decatur, Lerna, New Salem, and Springfield, Illinois. His main occupation was as a lawyer. Before he became president, he served as an Illinois state congressman and as a U.S. congressman from Illinois. He ran for president as a Republican and was president during the Civil War. During that time, he is most known for leading the country during that war, the Emancipation Proclamation, the Gettysburg Address, and being the first president to be assassinated. A few of my favorite Lincoln sites to visit include the Metamora Courthouse in Metamora, Illinois, the President's Cottage and Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., and the Lincoln Home, Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum, and the Lincoln Tomb in Springfield, Illinois. Andrew Johnson, our 17th president. Born in Raleigh, North Carolina, his father was a town constable who died when he was 3. His mother would support them as a washerwoman. He had no schooling. Prior to the White House, he lived in Raleigh, North Carolina, Mooresville, Alabama, and the towns of Knoxville, Columbia, and Greenville, Tennessee. His main occupation was as a tailor and politician. Before he became president, he served as a U.S. congressman from Tennessee and as governor of Tennessee. During the Civil War, he was appointed military governor of Tennessee by President Lincoln and became his vice president for his second term, even though he was a Democrat. As president, he is most known for being a poor replacement for Lincoln, was the first president to be impeached, and had such difficulty with Reconstruction that Ulysses S. Grant felt he had to run for president in order to save the country once again. A few of my favorite Johnson sites to visit include the Andrew Johnson National Historic Site and the Andrew Johnson National Cemetery, both in Greenville, Tennessee. Ulysses S. Grant, our 18th president. Born in Point Pleasant, Ohio, his father was a tanner and merchant. He was educated in small schoolhouses in Ohio and Kentucky before going to West Point Military Academy. Prior to the White House, he lived in Point Pleasant and Georgetown, Ohio, Detroit, Michigan, St. Louis, Missouri, and Galena, Illinois. Before becoming president, he was a soldier, farmer, clerk, and eventually became a U.S. general during the Civil War. Leading up to his presidency, he had never served in a political office. He ran for president as a Republican and is most noted for stabilizing the country post-war, working to secure the rights for all African Americans, having corrupt people around him but was never found to be corrupt himself, but he will always be best known as the general who won the Civil War. A few of my favorite Grant sites include the U.S. Grant Boyhood Home in Georgetown, Ohio, the U.S. Grant National Historic Site in St. Louis, Missouri, the Vicksburg Battlefield in Mississippi, City Point and Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia, and Grant's Tomb in New York City. Rutherford B. Hayes, our 19th president. Born in Delaware, Ohio, his father was a farmer and whiskey distiller who died before Hayes was born. His mother took in lodgers and leased out the farm. He attended local, private, and public schools, as well as Norwalk Seminary and Kenyon College in Ohio, and Harvard Law School in Massachusetts. Before the White House, he lived in the towns of Delaware, Fremont, and Cincinnati, Ohio. His main occupation was as a lawyer. During the Civil War, he served as a major and colonel of the 23rd Ohio Infantry Division. Before the White House, he served politically as a city solicitor, a U.S. congressman for Ohio, and as Ohio governor. He ran as a Republican and is most known for ending Reconstruction and pulling out all federal troops out of the southern states, and making a promise to serve only one term and keeping it. A few of my favorite Hayes sites include the Rutherford B. Hayes Presidential Library and Museum, the Hayes Home, and his gravesite, all in Fremont, Ohio. James A. Garfield, our 20th president, was born in Orange Township, Ohio. His father was a farmer but died when Garfield was an infant. His mother would continue work on their farm. He attended Geauga Academy and Eclectic Institute in Ohio, along with Williams College in Massachusetts, and self-studied the law. Before the White House, he lived in the towns of Orange Township, Hiram, and Mentor, Ohio. His primary occupation was an educational instructor and politician. Politically, he served as an Ohio state senator and a U.S. congressman for Ohio. During the Civil War, he organized the 42nd Ohio Infantry and held the ranks of colonel and major general, and eventually left his military post to serve in Congress. He ran for president as a Republican, and is most known for reforming the corrupt post office department and the idea of improving African American rights via government-supported education. He is also the second president to be assassinated, fighting hard for 79 days before he died, leaving a great disappointment over the good he could have done for the country. A few of my favorite Garfield sites are Middle Creek Battlefield in Kentucky, the Chickamauga Battlefield in Georgia, the Garfield Home in Mentor, Ohio, and the Garfield Monument in Cleveland, Ohio. Benjamin Harrison, our 23rd president, was born in North Bend, Ohio. His father was a farmer and politician. His grandfather was William Henry Harrison, our 9th president. His education took place in log cabins and with private tutors, and eventually he went to college at Farmers College and Miami University, both in Ohio. Before the White House, he lived in North Bend, Cincinnati, and Oxford, Ohio, and Indianapolis, Indiana. His main occupation was as a lawyer. Politically, he served as a reporter for the Indiana Supreme Court and as a U.S. Senator from Indiana. During the Civil War, he organized the 70th Indiana, serving as colonel and brigadier general. He ran for president as a Republican, and is most remembered for working with Congress to pass economic legislation, including the Sherman Antitrust Act and the McKinley Tariff, the creation of national forest reserves, and beating incumbent President Grover Cleveland, but then losing to him when he ran a second time. A few of my favorite Harrison sites include Resaca Battlefield and Kennesaw Mountain Battlefield in Georgia, and the Benjamin Harrison Presidential Home in Indianapolis, Indiana. William McKinley, our 25th president. Born in Niles, Ohio, his father owned and operated several iron foundries. He attended local schools, along with Poland Seminary in Ohio, Allegheny College in Pennsylvania, Mount Union College in Ohio, and Albany Law School in New York. Before the White House, he lived in the towns of Niles, Poland, Warren, and Canton, Ohio. His main occupation was as a lawyer and landlord. Politically, he served as a U.S. congressman from Ohio and governor of Ohio. During the Civil War, he was a private but was promoted to second lieutenant in the 23rd Ohio Infantry with Rutherford B. Hayes. He ran as a Republican, and as president is most remembered for his victory in the Spanish-American War of 1898, how he gained control over Hawaii and Puerto Rico, and that he became the third president to be assassinated, which happened during the first year of his second term. He died 8 days later. A few of my favorite McKinley sites include the Antietam Battlefield in Maryland and the McKinley National Monument and McKinley Presidential Library and Museum, both in Canton, Ohio. So, what are the final stats when looking at these 7 presidents that played a part in the Civil War? Well, 5 were born and raised in Ohio. 3 grew up without fathers. 1 grew up without a mother. 5 were raised in poverty or lower class means. 2 had no formal schooling beyond a year. 4 went to college. 1 went to a military academy. 4 were primarily lawyers. Only 1 held no prior political office. 6 were Republican, and 3 were assassinated. And as a bonus for still being with me, did you know that Abraham Lincoln's only child to survive into adulthood, Robert Lincoln, was near both Garfield and McKinley when they were assassinated? Many often say that Robert was cursed. Robert had turned down his father's invitation to come with him and his mother to Ford's Theater, but Robert expressed later that he wished he would have gone, as John Wilkes Booth would have had to go past him to get to his father. Robert was just 40 feet away from President Garfield when he was shot, and Robert was just outside the building where President McKinley was shot. After McKinley, it's said that Robert stopped attending special presidential functions. Though he often was asked to run for president, Robert not only did not have any interest, but he also felt the Republican Party cared more about his surname than his abilities. He did, however, serve as a U.S. minister to the United Kingdom and as Secretary of War. So, did anything surprise you out of this group of 7? Ohio really had a monopoly on late 19th century presidents, didn't they? 3 assassinations out of 7 presidents is a horrible percentage. And of course, we see the lasting impact of the Civil War, as there are no Southern or Democrat presidents, with the exception of Andrew Johnson, who was only president because he was on the ticket with Abraham Lincoln. If Abraham Lincoln had been able to finish his second term, there is no way Andrew Johnson would have been nominated for the presidency, let alone win the presidency. As always, I welcome your comments and questions. And of course, please like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, I bid you an affectionate farewell.